If you guys are up to it, I could give you a very short history lesson that I think puts this stuff in fairly clear perspective. It's a relatively simple idea. It is dividing history into three eras. And this is curiously in alignment with the Christian Bible, the account of Adam and Eve, which is something I rejected flat out of, I never accepted that as being any kind of reasonable understanding of the universe. But now I've come back to it in a very different light, though. And basically, the origins of language are completely unknown. There's a lot of speculation among linguists and various scientists of different types, but the truth is nobody really knows just how far back language goes or how it evolved or anything. It's all speculation. Well, I have my own speculation about it. And this relates to what I called the monkey operating system before, that all animals have, basically animals, the bodies anyway, are machines. They're machines in exactly the same sense that my computer is a machine. They're made out of meat, but nonetheless, they are made of physical matter that obeys the laws of physics, and therefore they are machines, and they operate according to the way their operating system controls the animal, or the monkey in the case I'm talking about, or the language monkeys, the species we belong to. This operating system, is the way monkeys walk and find food and organize their activity. Basically, all the stuff that is the software that's built into the monkey operating system that runs the monkey, that allows it to survive and thrive and reproduce and do all the things that monkeys do, I call the monkey operating system. But there was a special species of monkeys that had a special subroutine in their monkey operating system called language. In my case, English. In other people's cases, other languages. But that's a very special sort of subroutine in the monkey operating system. And that probably evolved over many, probably hundreds of thousands of years, because clearly even dogs have some rudimentary ability to categorize their experience, and that means language. Their language is vastly different than humans, but the fact that a dog can recognize its master's car pull in the driveway means that it has a concept in its head that sound is related to certain things, and it has to be labeled somehow, very differently, and we don't really understand it at all. But I would say that is a kind of linguistic ability. And so that arose over many, probably hundreds of thousands of years. And up until about somewhere between 2000 and 4000 BC, I think it's quite clear, in fact it is clear, that people heard voices in their heads. But prior to, say, 2000 or 4000 BC, that voice was attributed to God, or the king, or the elder, or the tree in the backyard, or something. But the idea that voice was me, that I controlled it and all that simply didn't exist until historical times, and you can trace it. There's a book called The Origin of Consciousness by a guy named Julian Jaynes, who wrote it back in the late 70s about this. Fascinating book, and he documents it fairly well. You can look at all the old ancient literature prior to, say, 2500 or 3000 BC, and people continually are referring to being told what to do by the gods, and that there's a voice that actually would tell them what to do. And we read that now, and people think, well, what's the matter with those? They're crazy? What the hell are they talking about? They're lying. They're making this stuff up. No, they weren't making it up. They heard a voice just like you and I do, except that they had interpreted that, or the way, not they did, but the way it was set up to be explained was that was the voice of God telling them what to do. And then around, between 2,000 and 4,000 years ago, something new happened. A new idea popped into that language machine. That was the idea that, well, wait a minute, that voice is me. I control that voice. I can do what I want with it. The first one who did that was Adam, metaphorically. So there were things that looked just like you and me around for at least 100,000 years, and probably a lot longer. But they weren't human in any sense of the word by what we mean to be human, because that voice for them, there was no I. They were basically language monkeys. until this new idea that, wait a minute, that voice is me. And it's taken several thousand years for that idea. That created basically civilization and humanity. That was when history started. That's why history goes no further back than about 4,000 years. The oldest written documents are like 4,200 BC. Anyway, that would explain the sort of mystery of our past, because up until the concept of I emerged, basically all you had was language monkeys. So now, for the last 5,000 years, something like that, we have been laboring under what I call the hallucination that voice is me. In the last 50 years, with the advent of computers and computer languages and programming, there's been a whole new way of thinking about language. And what we're now, it seems clear to me what we have discovered, the voice is not me. They were wrong. I mean, it was maybe a step forward from the voice is God to the voice is me, and it led to all of human history. But now we know the voice is my language machine. It's programmed. It's a machine. It does what it's been programmed to do. And unfortunately, a lot of it is really stupid. So now we are witnessing this next major emergence on the planet of a new species, just as Adam was inherently a new species from the pre-Adam language monkeys, although they were genetically interbreedable, biologically they were the same species. The fact that Adam thought that voice is me. Imagine being Adam. Imagine being the first guy to wake up to that and realize that, wait, that voice is me. And who are you surrounded by? A bunch of language monkeys that slavishly obey anything their language machine says and haven't the slightest concept of me or I. So, in a sense, Adam must have been in a tough spot, because how could he even begin to relate to all those language monkeys around him? Well, we are at that same turning point again now, when we're beginning to realize that voice is not me. That was an interesting idea, but it's not true. Who I am is an interesting question, and I'm not going to go into that right now, but it has something to do with being the programmer of the language machine rather than the language machine itself. So I think we are at a turning point in history, and there is a new species emerging, not a genetically distinct species. That's not really even very important. Genetic heritage is irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. Linguistic inheritance is what counts. The way we think is much more important than who we can impregnate. And the difference, when a person wakes up, or an entity is even a better word, because it's not a person, actually, in the old sense of a person. When this new entity emerged in my nervous system that realized that the voice is not me, well, I feel sort of the same way Adam must have felt about the language monkeys around him, Well, actually, and to back up just a moment, there's not that much difference between believing that the voice is God and believing that the voice is me, because ultimately both end up believing everything they hear the language machine saying and following its instructions, except that a long time ago they thought it was God telling them what to do. Now they think the voice is me, so because it's me, it must be true. I must believe it, therefore whatever it says I do. But once you're divorced from that, once the identity with the voice has been broken, you're in a position to reprogram it, to think about it, to observe it, to see whether it makes sense or not, and to begin debugging it and reprogramming it to be a lot less stupid. And that is, I think, the emergence of a new era of evolution on the Earth. Okay, so, end of rant. Who's got an opinion?
What was Adam's first word?
Probably, wow. I don't know what his first word is. So, sorry, I wasn't there. I have no idea, but I suspect it was one of surprise.
I would respond more, but I'm deep in thought. I've actually gone through what you're saying and analyzing it.
Well, I would say that is the proper
I see merit there.
Yeah, I think that is the proper response is sort of silence, I think, because the implications of this are very deep and profound and scary and amazing and weird and yeah.
And that's what we call the great mystery.
Yes, yeah, and the mystery is beautiful. It's a wonderful thing, and we're slowly uncovering parts of the mystery.